I like the Honor 50, but is it good enough to make me switch from the Poco F3? Is the Honor 50 fast? Yes, but not as fast as the F3. The speed of a device depends on both the hardware and software. The Honor 50's flavor of Android is Magic UI 4, which is great to use, after a few tweaks to make it my own. I always turn off transitions and animations in developer settings, and I ended up running Hyperion Launcher because there's not an option to use the double tap to lock gesture with the Honor 50's stock launcher. And good news here, gesture navigation works with third-party launchers. It's not all good news though, since there's no way to use apps in split screen mode, and none of the reviews I read mentioned this. They just said the Honor 50 was good at multitasking. Compared to the Poco F3's somewhat buggy MIUI 12 for Poco, which doesn't allow you to change the recent app style from tiles to horizontal, and doesn't support gesture navigation in third-party launchers, it's a bit of a toss-up, but I would say Magic UI is better for me. It's less buggy, and you can easily work around some of the limitations of the software to use the device the way you prefer, at least as long as you don't need split screen functionality. But what the F3 loses in software performance, it generally makes up with excellent hardware. The F3's Snapdragon 870, 6 or 8 gigs of LPDDR5 RAM, and 128 or 256 gigs of UFS 3.1 storage make it an almost flagship level device in terms of gaming, multitasking, and everyday use. The Honor 50 Snapdragon 778G, 6, 8, or 12 gigs of LPDDR4X RAM, and 128 or 256 gigs of UFS 2.1 storage mean it will generally perform very well, but as the benchmarks show, not as well as the Poco F3. In terms of navigating around the interface, opening apps, watching YouTube, listening to podcasts, and just general use, both of these phones perform very well. But if you're looking to play a lot of demanding games, the Poco is the better choice. So how are the screens? Both phones have great displays, with refresh rates at 120Hz that are large with sharp full HD plus resolutions and get bright enough for easy outdoor use. But technically, the Poco F3 wins here since it not only has a 120Hz refresh rate, but a fast 360Hz touch response rate that beats the Honor's 300Hz. The F3 gets brighter at a peak of 1300 nits instead of the Honor's at 750 nits. And the F3 screen is protected by Gorilla Glass 5, with the Honor's only having tempered glass. But one thing I really do like about the Honor 50's display is the curved screen design. I've liked it since the OnePlus 7 Pro, and I think it looks so good here. How about battery life? The Honor 50 just barely wins in terms of battery life and charging speed. It charges using the 66-watt included charger and can go from 1% to 100% in about 50 minutes, which is actually a little disappointing since the 65-watt charger that came with the Realme GT Master I tested could fully charge that device in just a little over half an hour. The Honor 50 does of course beat the Poco F3's 33-watt charger, but not by much, since it only takes a little under an hour to charge from 1% to full. The battery life of the Honor is similar to the F3, but it does last a bit longer, which is surprising since the Honor's battery is 4300 milliamps and the Poco's is 4520. Still, both phones last me a day and a half with normal use, watching YouTube videos, web browsing, listening to podcasts, and other normal boring stuff. By the way, if this video has been helpful so far, please give it a like. Thank you for that. Is the Honor 50 reliable? Yes. I haven't experienced any stutters or bugs. The only issues I've had have been easy to work through, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video. The Poco has gone back and forth in terms of bugs, with the most annoying being an issue where it won't switch to wireless data after being on Wi-Fi until you toggle airplane mode on and off. I haven't had an issue with that lately, but this has happened before, with the bug going away and coming back. But purely because I live in the States, I'll give the F3 the win for reliability since it's supported by T-Mobile and T-Mobile MVNOs for voice over LTE. And sadly, the Honor 50 is not. The Honor does have great 4G band support though, so you do get solid data coverage, which means you could use a voice over IP service like TextNow for voice and messaging, if you really wanted to use this phone on a wireless network in the US. So how are the cameras? On paper, the Honor 50 should take the better, or at least more detailed shot. It has a 108 megapixel main camera and a 32 megapixel selfie camera compared to the Poco's 48 megapixel main shooter and 20 megapixel selfie. Both have other cameras that are good enough, but much less commonly used. I generally think the Honor produces a better image most of the time, but it's not as consistent as the Poco. The Poco always gives you a good image, never great. The Honor often gives you a very good image, sometimes a great image, and other times it's pretty poor. Even in night mode, the Honor looks much more natural, except for this tree that just looks odd. And if you're wondering how much night mode helps on both these devices, here's the chair shot with night mode off. I also think I like the features on the Honor better than the Poco, especially this cool aperture mode. It really cranks up the depth of field effect. For video, stabilization seems to be a little bit better on the Poco, but generally the quality for both phones is fine for basic video shooting. Overall, the Honor 50 does win in the camera department, even if only very slightly. The F3 wins for audio due to its stereo speaker setup, which doesn't sound great, but it's pretty good, and louder than the Honor's single speaker. I rarely talk about design since it really just depends on what you prefer, but the Honor stands out. Not just this version with its shiny Honor lettering on the back, which I do happen to like, but it weighs a noticeable 21 grams less than the Poco F3. It has curved sides and an in-screen fingerprint scanner. All of those choices combined create a phone that's just more comfortable and easy to use than the Poco. The haptic motor is pretty sloppy though, and I think Honor knows this since I had to enable haptic feedback instead of that feature being enabled by default. Even the Poco F3 does a better job with tighter haptics. Lastly, the pricing. For around $500 US, you can pick up the 6GB version of the Honor 50 in the States, and you can get the 6GB Poco F3 for around $370. All in all, both phones are very good, and I would probably switch to the Honor 50 if it had carrier support in the United States. But you have to decide, do you want a phone that's easier to hold, with better software, better camera, and faster charging? Or do you want possibly the best phone in terms of pure performance for money, with a slightly better screen and better speakers? Either way, if you think one of these phones is right for you, you should check out Wireless Place, since they have both of them, as well as phones from Samsung, Xiaomi, OnePlus, and more. I've bought a few phones from Wireless Place, and they always ship fast, have great prices, and include a US adapter for the charger if you need it. A link to their site is in the description. If you want to see more about the Poco F3, you can check out this Gcam night mode comparison right here. And if you have a question, leave a comment below, and I will answer it perfectly. I mean, hopefully.